Sekiro is still one of the best, if not the best game FromSoftware has ever made. Scratch that. It's one of the best games ever made, period. And I hate to see Activision's name tainting the sight of that beautiful cover. Hello comrades, how's it going? Time for a brand new How's This Game Nowadays, starring none other than Have a Sense of Rhythm or Die Trying, my second most idolized FromSoftware torture. And I have to say that 6 years later, it still holds up excellently, partially because of how groundbreaking its combat was back then, and still is now. Let's start talking about the gameplay. FromSoftware took a big risk while going for a project like Sekiro, because the game is a Souls-like, but at the same time it isn't. There's always been a huge debate in the community about what exactly makes a game be considered a Souls-like. Is it the tough combat? Sekiro has it. Is it the character creation and build variety? It doesn't have it. Is it how most characters' stories are explained through dialogue or item descriptions? It has it. Is it the stamina and the health bar? It doesn't have it. But there's something even better, the posture bar.
It was perfect.
For me, Sekiro is not a Souls-like. It's even better. I've always loved Bloodborne to death. It introduced me to the Souls franchise. In spite of that, I have to recognize that the character who has got me hooked with his combat every time I come back to him is John Japan. I'm pretty sure you've already heard of this plenty, but goddamn! When it came to Sekiro's combat, FromSoftware didn't cook. They straight up committed arson. How am I supposed to come back to Dark Souls 1 now? When you cross swords with an enemy, the combat is cinematically genius. Taking control of your character to create a cinematic bit can be done well. God of War is a good example of that. Other games do that way too often, and sometimes combat feels a little too scripted. In Sekiro, however, you hardly ever lose control of your character, unless he's dealing a death blow, which range from only 2 to 5 seconds. Everything else is completely in-game, in real time, which makes those bits where you receive a strong blow feel like you got hit by fucking Mike Tyson sporting some brass knuckles. That's the moment when you can appreciate the real strength of a character, when a 20-foot headless monkey falls down after dropping everything on you. But the old men who are still in the game are simply pushed back a little by your deflection. Besides those moments of raw sword power, it also shows its insane artistic direction through other channels like the lightning attacks, the super satisfying whoosh of the mortal blade, that reinvigorating stomp of the Mikiri counter, how potent those punches and suplexes sound when an enemy grabs you, and how can I not mention the deflects? The most gratifying sound in any game. The real reward of learning the boss's moveset is not beating them, but chaining that ching sound to infinity and beyond. I have to give a triple S+ of smoking sexy style for this game's art direction. What's more, the gameplay doesn't fall behind the looks and sounds. Beyond the Mikiri counters and the deflections, you have a whole arsenal of gadgets at your disposal, and if you pay attention to your surroundings, leave the Subway Surfers clips aside and read for 10 seconds, you'll understand how useful items can be. For instance, I am guilty of underestimating the usefulness of the whistle, until I once more. The shurikens can throw enemies out of the air. The flame vent is perfect for red-eyed enemies who are scared of fire. The mist is very good for dodging complicated attacks, even against the inner version of Genichiro, who will redirect the lightning strikes at you on some Uncle Iroh type of shit. The mist will completely nullify his redirection. The shield, exceptionally the purple one, is so good against attacks that cause terror, like the Headless Ape Scream or the Kamehameha from the Shishimen Warrior. The Puppeteer skill can completely turn the tables in your favor, for instance here, making it a 2v1 instead of a 1v2. And I could go on for a long while. The game wants you to be smart with every encounter, because I don't know if you've realized it, but fighting 2 or 3 enemies at once is a no-go. Sure, the basic Ashina troops, yeah, no problem, but 2 interior ministry ninjas start feeling a little one-sided. It's true that sometimes some mechanics are easily overlooked. Carefully listening to conversations can take you places. For instance, the merchant saying he's spotted a fire cannon when he saw you at Hirata State. By eavesdropping on the soldiers, you can see that Ogre is weak to fire. Add 2 and 2, and you will have a much easier time with this secondary boss. However, the mechanic to deflect lightning is literally only explained to you in a tapestry you can see right before the boss fight against Genichiro. And the text in it isn't even that clear. It just says, avoid the ground, reverse lightning. Okay, no ground, got it. But how do I reverse it? It feels like it's necessary that you get struck at least once so that mini tutorial can appear for you to be like. And that's at the third phase of a boss who can be considered this game's Father Gascoigne, who's a roadblock until you're pretty solid at the game's mechanics. Something I've always felt it's a bit off about some games with swords, for instance, Yakuza Ishin, is that no matter how much you slash at someone, it looks like they never get injured from your cuts. Some enemies in that game are sponges because they can tank your hits and keep going as if nothing happened. This sort of gameplay takes realism out of the fight because it makes me think, am I fighting with a wooden sword or are they just wearing very good armor? None of that, you're just level 10 and they are 20. This is something that has always bugged me. Yet, in Sekiro, fights are much more realistic thanks to the posture mechanic. Instead of focusing on depleting a health bar, our objective is filling a posture gauge. It's very immersive because instead of cutting down someone with no armor and no apparent visual signs that they've been hurt in battle, I'm slowly exhausting them by throwing them off balance until I'm able to tickle them with the tip of my blade. Realism in Sekiro is still something subjective because some people can be stabbed in the neck and still speak, or even be gutted and still fight, but well, this is a commentary on how a real sword fight would be, not some biology class. In regards to the movement, I think FromSoftware took a huge risk with all the freedom they took to alter the typical Souls formula they had been following the past years. It's very easy to annoy the fans of a franchise when you drastically change what they've come to love. It happened to Call of Duty when they went from what we had in Ghosts to jetpacks and futuristic madness. The backlash was huge and social media was flooded with the expression "boots on the ground" from people asking them to come back to the previous formula. The same could have happened with Sekiro because it added stealth, which before its release was only present in previous games in the sense of approach a back-turned enemy walking, not sprinting, and do a critical, which sometimes didn't finish the enemy if you didn't have enough strength. They also added Spider-Man-like movement, which has you grappling around the moats, a specific button to jump without the need to sprint first, hang on ledges, climb up. Sekiro wouldn't have been a real shinobi had he been constrained to the movement freedom of an elephant. So, of course, I love those changes. The gameplay is much more spiced when there are different ways to approach a situation. Subsequent playthroughs are fresher because, for instance, this time, instead of triggering the combat with the 7 Ashina spears right off the bat, I can sneak in from the side and get a backstab which will severely alter the difficulty of the fight, since now I only have to break his posture once. FromSoftware hardly ever disappoints us with area designs unless they're feeling like pulling off a Farron Keep, a Tomb of the Giants, a Forbidden Woods. Okay, they've disappointed us a few times, but bear in mind that it's been many deliveries already, 16 years to be exact, since they delivered the first blueprint of what was about to turn the genre into the newest trend. Each game has tens of areas, so a few shrines of Amana here and some lost isoliths there don't really bother me. Sekiro really nails its locations, with only one being very bland, and that is the Abandoned Dungeon. It's pretty much a cave hallway that connects the important zones like Ashina Castle, Simple Temple, and the Depths. The enemy variety is pretty damn boring, since all you get are zombies or test subjects, however you want to call them. They do nothing and can't die, which means no money and no experience. In other words, useless. The crickets, however, can die, but their combat potential for entertainment is basically none, so I don't even bother. The only redeemable quality of this place is that it contains what might be your first Shishimen warrior. And those are nice. Dojun's quest is pretty useless. I always finish him on sight because of the lore implications. His character pretty much wants more bodies to perform immortality tests on using the rejuvenating water. But every subject always ends up becoming a red-eyed enemy losing their minds. He's evil, and his quest doesn't give you much besides a few lumps of grave and fat wax, which initially can be considered rare materials until you discover that if you activate the demon bell, many enemies start dropping rare loot. You can get all these from the simple monks or the nobles at Fountainhead Palace. So yeah, doing all the listening and questing he asks, and basically the only reward is seeing friendly faces turned evil, is worse than Yosefka's quest in Bloodborne. We don't do that kind of cold-hearted things here, bud. See you on the other side. The rest of the zones are awesome in many ways. Ashina Castle and Ashina Outskirts are some of the most dynamic in FromSoft's zone history. The The way they change the weather and time of the day depending on how much you progress through the story is really well done, especially with the new enemies that start appearing due to the incoming Interior Ministry invasion. It makes the world feel like it moves because the same enemies aren't always stuck on the same position from the beginning until the end of a playthrough. The Senpo Temple also goes through a night and day cycle, and it looks just as beautiful during the day than during the night with that full moon looming. The Ashina Deaths is very different if you visit it before dealing with the ape, because he won't come back to his habitat and hence there will be many more gunmen and the tents will be intact. Beyond the world's dynamism, the art design of some areas is beyond beautiful. Ashina and Mount Congo look nice, but god damn, I would be stupid if I made a top 10 Soulsborne areas and didn't put Fountainhead Palace in #1 spot. It's just so... There aren't words to describe this. People born in Japan are so lucky, man. You get to see sakura trees, bloated carps, and okami Brazilian warriors all day long. I wish I had spawned there too. One more thing that I want to highlight about the area design and the ambience is how music helps enhance the experience. I've always been partially against music in Souls games for different reasons, but I think it was a pretty clever idea to include a track for each area in this game. Otherwise, the beauty and the horror of some zones wouldn't have been fully transmitted. I still remember the first time I encountered a headless, and that eerie, ominous track started playing. And I wasn't dealing any damage to it, after which it proceeded to remove my soul through my anus. I died right there, understandable, and that's when I knew I was playing one of them Michael games. The boss fights in Sekiro are something else. For the first time ever, I am not going to rank them in this sort of video because I would love to do a separate video ranking them. That's how good they are. I can still say many things right now about them without spoiling the content of the future ranking. Every boss fight is a battle of wits. Yes, even the goddamn monkeys require some thinking. You have to try to approach each one in a different way if you want to catch them. At least, that's their intention. I think every player ends up chasing them until they finally catch up to them. No matter the way you do it, I think this one and the Double Apes are the only miserable fights in this game, and I'll never change my mind. As for the rest, I love them. From Little Horse Riding Gyobu to Sword Saint Ishin, they are all incredible, either gameplay-wise, spectacle-wise, or both. The Divine Dragon is a puzzle fight done right. The fact that Sekiro has such a rich gameplay loop can make even some of the worst Souls game bosses fight fun. Give us Bed of Chaos with a few grappling spots and we're good to go. Actually, that would be too easy. Maybe having a jump button to do platforming is enough. I think the beast bosses such as the Ape and the Demon of Hatred are nice once you learn how they work. The Demon of Hatred is hard, but it works just like any other fight. Learn the timings and the moves and you're off to have a great time fighting him. The sword or spear wielders are my favorite types since, I don't know about you, but it's easier for me to read their moves if they're carrying a stick of steel so I can parry them. It feels more satisfying because of the cling sound. Genichiro, Ishin, and Al having an inner version is something we never got to see in any other game, and I really like them. Genichiro, being a student of Almighty Tomoe, returns your lightnings towards you, turning the fight into a Thunder Pong match. It's rich in gameplay, and it's also a genius way to explain how OP Tomoe was, because not even inner Ishin can do this. I mean, he said it in one of those sake conversations that he almost lost his life to her, so yeah. Where's the DLC, you say? I don't know, probably somewhere in deep Japan. Something else I love lore-wise is how this combo is identical to the one the Okamis perform. Yet another well-done connection between Genichiro and Tomoe, who was an exiled Okami. Al becomes much trickier to track since he starts skipping and flying everywhere in his Al form, and Inner Ishin receives a few more lethal moves of his own. Correct me if I'm wrong, but Ishin faking a move like that was not in his original version, right? Al does it 24/7, he loves the fakery stuff, but I think I never saw normal Ishin trying to fool you. One more thing that I would like to talk about the bosses before we move on to the negative stuff is how we are able to repeat them at will once we beat them. I think this is goated and I can't comprehend how this has never appeared in any of their games. Do you know how nice this is for us poor console YouTubers when we don't have to beat the whole game again just to redo a fight to gather more footage? It's insanely comfortable, and not only for us content creators but also for people who are playing it only for fun. I would move mountains for a Bloodborne update where I could choose to fight Ludwig or Lady Maria whenever I wanted instead of having to unlock them again in a new playthrough. Please, bring that back for your newest game, Miyazaki. Look, I even called you by your own name. If that doesn't scream I mean business, then I don't know what does. Thank you for watching all the way here, comrade. Ashina has fallen, and only you can prevent the same from happening to my channel, if you subscribe in case you're enjoying the content. Now let's go to the bad. Sekiro is a very polished game. In my 200 and something hours there, I've only found one bug where I couldn't stop falling, and since you can open the menu while not grounded, I had to close the application. But that's all. Sure, you have the air swimming and whatnot, but those are bugs that you have to search for in case you're a speedrunner. So what could I complain about this gem? For starters, the unseen aid is a half-assed mechanic that I think shouldn't exist. For those who don't know, you have a 30% chance of keeping your coin and experience if you die. I think, what's wrong with reusing the mechanic we've always had in every Souls game? Die, go back there and pick up your stuff, in this case, money and experience. Why do I have to lose half of everything if this unseen aid decides not to help me? It feels very reliant on RNG and I never like those. Why are the odds of getting it reduced when Dragon Rot is spreading? This game has a steep learning curve. Players had to reinvent their playstyle for this game because dodging and iframes are not the main focus anymore. In a game where gadgets and skills exist to keep things fresh and prevent the gameplay from becoming stale, you're cutting me off of those for what reason? At least there's a solution for the coin where you can buy bags and have your money in a sort of bank where you can't lose it. But the skill? Here's what I am incited to do as a new player. I see my experience points are about to go from 1 to 2. The moment I get to number 2, I'm safe. The bar cannot regress because it's like I've filled this point. But I haven't done it yet, so the smartest thing to do is to farm and kill the same enemies over and over until I am safe from losing the progress I've made. It seems counterproductive because a game should never incentivize you to farm. It's the most tedious thing you can do in any game ever, especially if you're a completionist and you want to unlock all possible skills. It's like you need 4 playthroughs of this game to be able to play with everything. Good luck farming the same ninja in the Ashina dojo for hours. These motherfuckers. The fights against the Headless are a bit too slow sometimes. It sucks at the beginning when you're struggling to find resources and spend some divine confetti, played the fight well, but just because of how slow it is, your confetti timer ends, and you have to pop another one to finish what's little left of its health bar. That is, if you have another one. Worst case scenario, you have to abandon the fight that is already won just because you lack the item. Stealth breaks immersion sometimes. I've always thought that Sekiro is not really a stealth game. Going in places as a ninja and taking out enemies from the shadows is a way to play it, and sometimes, for newcomers, it's much easier to go around assassinating enemies one by one instead of starting a fight and triggering all of them. The former is more practical, the latter is more entertaining for seasoned players. Even though stealth is not the main focus, a few tweaks here and there to add a layer of difficulty would have been nice. Soldiers who are patrolling don't react to seeing their comrades dead on the floor. They simply continue their patrol as if nothing happened. Must have been the wind. Also, if you screw up a segment that you want to stealth, just run away and everything will reset without the need to rest at an idle. It's like they completely forgot that a dangerous shinobi almost killed them a second ago, and in that aspect, I don't enjoy how dumb the AI is. As usual, the hitboxes of the grabs and how much they track you feel very stupid, especially the ones from the chained ogre and the ape. I've finished this game 7 times and I still suffer from anxiety whenever the ape or the ogre go for a grab, especially the latter. In this game, falling out of the map doesn't cause an instant death, as long as you have HP. The problem with the ogre's grab is that he yeets you after breaking your entire spine. If you happen to end up flying out of the map, it's an instant death, even if you have a revive available. I love this combo. Instant death plus bad hitboxes. The obstacles you need to go through to face bosses and mini-bosses can be very frustrating. For the sake of having realism, it's normal that many commanders and generals are surrounded by other soldiers. Gameplay-wise, it's annoying to die to some of these and have to clean all of the soldiers again. The last Juzo the Drunkard clone after the invasion is the first to come to mind. Those red samurais are tough if you're outnumbered, especially with a mini-boss around. Die to him once and you'll have to kill them all again, which sucks. The same goes for Ishin Ashina and Sword Saint Ishin. Having to go through Emma or Genichiro every time I die to either Ishin doesn't help me at all. I know they're easy to deal with, but it's a mild inconvenience because I'm not interested in beating an NPC whose moveset I've already learned to perfection. I'm trying to learn the moveset of the boss to whom I'm dying in just a few seconds. I don't think it's a good boss fight design, and I don't know why they're still doing this. I still think not having multiplayer is a crime. We don't know much about the reason besides that allowing them to focus more on the level design itself instead of worrying about exploits players might find while working together. And bosses can reach a new complexity level since the developers know they will always only focus on one character. It's true Sekiro is one of the strongest FromSoftware protagonists gameplay-wise. Until 2022 he was S tier by the simple fact that he could jump without doing a stupid roll forwards into his death. Add the gadgets and the parry, and in good hands you have an untouchable protagonist. Adding another one would be criminal for bosses. That's great, but I still think they could have done something about that. Like, if you summon someone, all parries must be perfect, otherwise you lose health. Pretty much an instant Kuro's charm effect. And that you lose all revives and can recover them if you summon someone. Most bosses already have the movement to move away if they are being spammed by both players. Add a few area attacks like long sweeps and turnaround attacks in case the second player is mashing at the back of the boss, and I think we would have some pretty decent jolly cooperation. The invasions, however, could cause some trouble because Sekiro is a kind of defensive game where it's your turn whenever you parry something right, mostly. I can't imagine a PvP because first, Sekiro's katana is very limited with its moveset. In other words, very easy to parry, so both players would just wait for the other to attack. My only solution for this would have been to give Sekiro feints and fakes and make it so that if you block without parrying, your posture gauge increases, which goes against the game's principles, where if you hold L1 you recover your bar. Maybe PvP could happen in a secluded area where these rules are applied, but only there. How limited yokai are. In Japanese folklore, if there's something endless, it's demons. How come I've only seen two types of apparitions spammed all across the world when one of them is one of the worst things that could have ever happened in this game? The design of the headless is dope, but the gameplay deserves a stomp, a spit, and a do better. No DLC. The Blazing Ball's existence. Well, comrades, I hope I haven't been too harsh to this gem of a game. In spite of all the negative things I've said about it, I still think this is a 9.5 out of 10. Must buy if you're into masochism without the constant worry of exhausting yourself because of low stamina stats. If you are expecting me to mention the lack of character creation or dragon rot as negative aspects, I'm sorry to disappoint you. I don't need stats that will prevent me from using my equipment optimally, and I couldn't care less about my character having a normal face for a change. If the character is cool, I'm cool with it. Sekiro is a fresh change of theme from their other games where I can face some very difficult challenges but with an entire arsenal at my disposal. It would be sinful to give us all those toys and lock them behind a 30 strength requirement to use the axe, for example. Dragon rot can be a nuisance in very specific situations where you want to continue a character's quest but can't because he's sick. You go out to explore and find some droplets but end up forgetting about their quests or progressing too deep into the game after the dragon, where most of them just die. I think the game gives us plenty of droplets, and even if they're not enough for you because you're dying too much, you can ration them and use them whenever you feel like doing the quest. You can take as long as you want to cure them because they don't die of dragon rot. It's small annoyance, yes, but it never bothered me as much as to include it in a list of the worst aspects of the game. I hope you enjoyed the video. Hit the like button if that's the case, hype the video to help my small channel grow, and we'll be seeing each other around, comrades. Bye!